Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly live stream slash podcast. I am podcast. Join with me today. No, I am Brad. Thank you guys for joining. As always, I'm joined by Elon. I say always, but sometimes not.
Sometimes not.
Sometimes not. And Taurus, our special guest Taurus today from the Fun Waste of Time podcast, available anywhere you can find your podcasts. Yeah, Taurus, welcome to the show. This is the first time we've had a guest on.
Well, I got to say, I'm excited to be here. I'm happy that I am the first, setting standards. I like that.
You know, we've set the bar really high. That's what we're trying to do?
I don't know about that, but
technically we had the guy from Oro that we did a pre-recorded interview with.
There you
True.
go. Okay.
But live.
I feel better about myself now. All right.
This is, yeah. So thank you for joining. I know last minute, I just reached out to you yesterday. But you made some, the reason I have you here is you kind of go hand in hand with this topic because recently, I don't know how recently, we're talking about at least, around, 4 to 6 months ish. Maybe a little.
About a year.
About a year. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. Because I bought the receiver about a year ago from you.
And the last time we had a conversation about it, it was you, me, and Jeremy from Techthusiasm talking about upgrades we were planning to do in 2023.
That is very true.
Holiday season
right.
2022, I think. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, you made some upgrades to your home theater and you had some initial ideas and then you kind of talked to some people, which we'll kind of get to later in the show here. But you kind of changed those ideas or changed your mind a little bit just based on the information that was given to you as well. And so I figured who better than to bring in on this topic of channel counts in home theater than you. I myself had made upgrades recently, which we'll talk about. But we are here on a great Tuesday night. It's storming in Florida. How's the weather there for you guys? Both of you. It's hot. I think you're muted, Elon.
Oh, yes, it's
there
hot.
You go.
It's
yeah.
It's 111 today, and then it's going to be 118 later this week. So.
Pretty hot out here, too. It's about 100 degrees.
Ooh.
We like that out here in Texas. We're used to that.
None of us.
That's why I moved to Texas for that hot weather, so I can't complain about it.
You keep trying to get me to move from Florida to Texas, and I'm like, it's not any. It's just it's just heat. Heat everywhere.
But it's not humid here, so you'll have a good experience. This is Central Texas. So.
Now, yeah. So, we have some people here already. Bocinco. I can never pronounce his name ever.
Pinko.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Joel is here. Welcome, Joel. And Kevin is in attendance. Thank you for joining us, guys. You guys kind of know the drill. If it's your first time here, we have a little thing here that we do. So like if you have a general question as we talk, if you wouldn't mind putting a GQ there and ask away, that way we can easily see it and star it. And then if you have a topical question, you can just put a TQ there as well. Or if you just have a general question, you don't feel like typing the T instead of the G, we'll still try to get to it. And then finally, super chats, super stickers are enabled for both of us, both Elon and myself. Not required, but if you want to show your support, it's much appreciated. So we just like having you guys here. And we're gonna get to talking about stuff. Elon, like I know, so originally this was actually the topic that I wanted to do when you were out of town, and it was just me solo.
Ah, okay.
I had kind of reached out to Taurus and like, hey, I have this idea, and it just didn't work out at that time, and so I was like, well, let's revisit it now that Taurus is free. We are going to try to keep the live stream tonight around hour and a half. I know Taurus has some things he has to go take care of in about an hour's time, so he may end up dipping out near the end, which is okay. No problem. I'm giving you permission now, Taurus.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
We'll allow that, I
We'll
guess.
allow
Elon, do
that.
you approve? Okay, I'm good to go. Great.
Yes, I
Yeah,
approve.
yeah.
I approve. I already signed off on it. I saved the email, so you just need to DocuSign that
Yeah,
document.
I actually want my stamp. I need a stamp document. So
Yes, yes.
show all that on it. Yeah.
Hey, Tim is here. Hello, Tim. And Jeffrey is here as well. Hello, Jeffrey. Yeah, we're going to actually just go ahead and dive in here because well, I want to talk about this. So as you guys know, I kind of did the home theater revamp videos a few months ago now. And in that video, I upgraded from 5 bed layer speakers to 7 channel, like to 7 bed layer speakers. So I added back surrounds, and Elon is distracting me right now. It's so funny.
That is cool. It's a baby monitor, man.
Is it? Oh, wow.
That's
get-
pretty awesome.
I get easily distracted. I'm sorry.
BRB. Sorry,
Yeah.
my daughter's trying to talk to me.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
kind
No
of figured
problem.
it was a baby monitor. I'm like, that's cool.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So I upgraded to 7.4.4. I was already at 5.4.4. But I added the back surrounds, and I was just amazed at what adding those back surrounds did to my sound in my theater. The envelopment went up. I also moved the side surrounds to like 80. I was trying to do 80 degrees, but I could only do 85. Otherwise, I'd have to move some things around. And that just kind of, I kind of went on this research project of my own volition, I guess, talking, like kind of looking into like, okay, what could I go, like, where could I go from here? What makes the most sense? What's kind of like, doesn't make sense? And so that was my experience, was just having a basic, like 7.4. I say basic because most people don't have that many. But it kind of got me wondering. Torse, I know that you made these upgrades to your theater, and why don't you kind of, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about like what you ended up doing, like what you started with, and then your ideas, and then kind of like what you ended up with.
Okay, sure. Well, when I first set up my theater, I pretty much did it on my own. AVS, did some research there. Actually had the opportunity to talk to Anthony Gramani because I did purchase his acoustical treatment plan when I initially set up the room. But by the time I worked with Anthony or got some consultation from him, I pretty much had everything already worked out. Everything was in the walls and was pretty much ready to go when it came to placement.
Yeah.
Because my theater is architectural, I couldn't just take my speakers out and move them where I wanted to move them. And I made some poor design decisions when I initially set up my theater. It looked fantastically, aesthetically. I was super pleased with the way that it looked. And at the time, because I didn't know any better, I thought it sounded freaking great. I had my Dolby Atmos speakers off axis. They were facing towards the door in the back of the room as opposed to the main listening position. And the Dolby Atmos, the rear heights were too close to the rear surrounds. I think they were only separated by about 15 degrees or so. So they were really muddy when it came to sound that was coming from the back of the room. But I was stoked because my theater was finished and I just thought it was cream of the crop until I actually learned everything that I did wrong. Learned everything that I did wrong, had to go back to my boss and try to see if I could lobby for a little more money to clean up the theater. And it ended up being a lot more money than a little. And she was, she let me do it, but she told me about it after it was done.
Well,
but yeah, so initially my theater was a 7.6, 6 subwoofers. Well, 2 channels with 6 subwoofers, .4. And I wanted to upgrade it to, at the time, a 9.6.6, actually. I wanted to add 2 more Atmos speakers. And as I was preparing for that, doing all of my diagrams and designs and all of that, I decided to reach out to a couple of people to not make the same mistake that I made the first time around. And I contacted Stephen Smith. Stephen Smith,
nice.
Home Theater Gurus, fantastic guy to work with. Now, because I wanted to pretty much do the majority of designs on my own, I didn't actually pay for him to do a complete design of my room. I booked a couple of hours with him and we ran through some things that I was planning on doing. And he basically straightened me out because when I was talking to him, I was talking in feet and inches, and it needs to be placed over here, and we'll tow it in
Yeah.
this way, and all of that. And Steven stopped me right there. He said, "Hey, Taurus," and that smooth voice he has. "Hey, Taurus."
Yeah,
We
he
don't
does.
talk in feet and inches when we talk home theater design. We talk in degrees and angles. I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm learning something here." So from that point on, we looked at my theater from that angle, from degrees and angles and degree angles and that type of thing. And I was finally able to get the proper placement of where everything in my theater needed to be. And Stephen was a big part of that. I just needed to make sure that I had all of the measurements right. I did the calculations based on the calculations he provided to me. I basically did the measurements and all of that on that. And it came out very, very well. Instead of doing a 9.6.6, I ended up doing an 11.6.4.
Mhm.
And as I stated a little earlier, the reason I didn't do those 6 Dolby Atmos heights was because it just didn't make sense with the size of my room. My room is actually 25 feet deep by 16 feet wide. And the Dolby Atmos heights being placed in the back of the room, right near the rear Atmos heights, there really wasn't much separation at all between the two. It just didn't make sense to put them there. So what we decided to do was to move the rear Atmos heights to the middle of the room around the first seating position, around the first row. And so that first row is actually the main listening position when it comes to all of the Dolby Atmos dispersion that you get in the room. Now, the back row isn't missing much at all, because the speakers that are put back there and the placement of the speakers back there, and the fact that there is now some serious separation between all of the different speakers in that room,
Mhm.
it just sounds fantastic. I'm not missing much at all by not having 6 Dolby Atmos heights. 4 is the right number to do depending on the size of your room. And my ceiling is only 8 feet high as well.
Yeah.
So if I had like 9 or maybe 10 feet and there was more separation between the rear surrounds and the ceiling height, maybe then I could have possibly looked at doing some rear Dolby Atmos heights. But for the size of my room, and as I stated, 16 feet wide, 25 feet deep, 8-foot ceiling, just didn't make sense to add that third row of Dolby Atmos heights.
Right. Right. And like that's what we kind of went back and forth with. Also, I showed people, like I was showing your theater as you were talking there. I don't know if you saw
Nice.
that.
A bit.
But yeah, anybody that wants to check it out can go to thefunwasteoftime.com.
And I haven't actually loaded up any new
Oh,
updated photos on there. I need to do that soon.
okay.
Eventually, what I'm planning to do
Yeah.
is a video tour of my theater, the way that I did the first tour that I did years back, for the most recent upgrade. So I'll eventually get that going. But for right now, I'm living vicariously through Brad. Brad is just talking me through how to do the tour and do it right. So
That's what I do. That's what I do. We've actually talked, Taurus and I have talked about one day me coming out and actually doing like a home theater tour, like making a video about his kind of theater and like why, like everything, plus I've never actually seen it in person. So that would be very, very cool. So I don't know. We'll have to see if we can make that happen. I'm not making any guarantees.
well, it'd be cool to happen, man. It'd be cool to have you here. I know that Jordan reached out, Jordan Farrington, Haterade Cowboy.
Yep.
And he wanted to do a tour, and I would have loved to have done a tour with Jordan. But I made the promise to do the tour with the home theater gamer, so I wasn't going to let anybody jump and take your place, buddy. So I'm waiting on you.
I mean, I appreciate it. This warms my heart. Either that or it might be the cholesterol. I'm not sure. But no, it's just that would be so cool to check it out. We'll kind of talk more as I get less busy. Less busy. Actually, we have a couple questions for you in particular, Taurus. Taurus, where did you find that awesome clock on the wall behind you?
Amazon.
Amazon. Do you
I
remember
have one here in the studio, and I also have one in the garage as my gym. And that one's a blue light. It's actually pretty cool.
Gotcha.
And I use it. The one in the gym I use for timing myself between sets.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending that I would like to work out, guys. I'm actually, if you looked at me, you would say that I eat a little too much at Uber Eats and DoorDash. So I'm trying to tighten that down just a little bit.
So, it's just easy when you want Ben and Jerry's,
Actually, you don't need Ben and Jerry's. I actually have a Ninja Creamy now. Have you guys heard of the Ninja Creamy?
No.
You actually make ice cream at home. It's a fantastic machine.
This is turning into
all kinds of low-calorie ice cream and having it just about every other day. The most fantastic thing I think I've ever discovered outside of my theater.
This video is not sponsored by Ninja. What's it, Ninja Creamy, by the way? With Torres's voice, he can make anything sound good. Just saying. I'm just saying. And also, Kevin has another question, which I know the answer to, but what is your AVR/processor? Because I know you're running your separates there.
Yeah, I went with the Anthem AVM 70 for mine. But I also have two network matrixed DSPs, Ashley Protea DSPs. Yep. There are two of those, and they pretty much cover the whole spectrum of speakers that I have. And any additional subs or speakers that I want to add, I could actually add to the theater because there will be plenty of channels for me to add to that DSP.
Was your main reasoning, if I remember correctly, your main reasoning for adding that was because you wanted the second set of side surrounds?
I wanted the second set of side surrounds, but also at the time I was going to have Anthony Gramani come through and do a calibration for me.
That's right.
And as I was going back and forth with him on email, and truth be told, Elon, man, I was so green talking to this guy. He was talking things that were just way above my head, man. I had to go on YouTube. I had to go on my Google and look up some of the stuff that he was talking about to make sure that I sounded kind of smart when I was talking to him. But it didn't help, buddy. It didn't help at all, believe me. But he actually recommended the Ashley Protea DSPs if you didn't have a DSP in your system. And he said it didn't matter what kind of AVR that you actually had, because those Proteas, those network Proteas, work just as fantastically as having a fantastic high-end AVR processor. And sure enough, man, I wasn't able to get him here, but I did get Jeff Meary, who is a local Texan. Actually, he's out in Austin, and he travels the country doing home audio calibrations for folks. And he's becoming pretty popular now. His company is called Bison HTA. So if any of you want a professional calibration on your system, he actually does travel. And his prices, I got to say, while he is not inexpensive by any means, his prices are very, very reasonable for the job that he does. So I'd highly suggest those that are interested, go to his website, Bison, just like the animal, HTA.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember you telling me about your experience with him. And the results were nothing short of spectacular, shall we say.
I was very happy. I was very pleased with the job he did. And he actually really wasn't familiar with working with those Ashleys, but he actually kept asking me, what is the other big DSP that's out there that's super complicated? I can't think of it right now. The name is actually
yeah, it escapes me.
It's another really popular but very complicated DSP.
Mini DSP? No,
it's not mini DSP. He actually that one more so. But the Protea he actually liked because it was fairly to the point. All of the everything that he needed in order to do a proper calibration and more were there. So he actually did the calibration. I think he did it in about a day and a half. It took him about a day and a half to finish because there were so many speakers and subs in there.
Yeah. Well, I can attest to that because I am familiar with DSPs, and when you first got everything set up, you're like, hey, let's jump on TeamViewer. I want to show you this. And you kind of let me kind of just stroll around in it for a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, like I would love to have this. Like you have everything right here. You get I can't remember how many bands of parametric EQ they have on there, but I was like, I would have a field day with this in my system. It was amazing. And Kevin, I was going to say, Torres is the one that I bought the Denon X6300H from. So he's the one that got me gave me an awesome deal on that. No, because he knew it was going to a good home. And I love that. I love that damn thing. So I want to include Elon on this conversation because he's here as well.
Sorry,
But,
Elon.
no.
Hey, I'm just happy listening. This is
Hey,
great.
he's like, why am I even here, guys? So like,
I just like Taurus's radio voice.
it is a very soothing voice. I used to
Love
do
it.
the podcast, the Fun Waste of Time podcast, and he would realize I would doze off about halfway through every podcast we would do because of his voice is so soothing. No, so Elon, like I know, like you and I've kind of talked about this before. You would set up like that kind of, we'll call it like the test chamber, the test room, whatever.
Mhm.
For testing out speakers, but you chose like you wired for kind of every kind of speaker layout that you possibly could think of, right? Like you just kind of
Yeah.
went out, but like, have you found like in your overall testing, is there like, have you gone, okay, this is like overkill, like we don't need all this in this room, or more speakers are better? Like, have you found anything in like that kind of?
I mean, it is a pretty small theater. It's only 11 feet wide and 16 feet deep. So going, because I maxed it out to where there's a total of 17 speakers in the theater at any given time. I can have 9 ear level speakers, um, technically 8 height channels if you count the voice of God and the center height, if we're talking RO3D configurations,
Nice.
and then 6 like normal Atmos heights. Um, so I haven't yet had an opportunity to get an AVR or processor that can handle all 17, or at least be able to connect them all at once. But that's why I think last week, SDP58, which is a 16 channel preamp processor.
Yeah.
But, I was still looking at some forums and comparing this and that. And it actually does have quite a few forum posts that talk about its really shitty, like very old school um, user interface. And it's like back in the 90s pretty much.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you've also got quite a few bugs and issues going on when you're trying to set it up for the first
Yeah.
time. But even when you have set it up, it's still, I read some forum posts that said it did some weird stuff where only the front left and right speakers were outputting audio, or only the center channel. So I'm like, because I mean, that's the thing, is like every preamp processor is going to have something with it. It's little quirks, sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
something you deal with. But there are certain quirks that I don't want to deal with whatsoever. And some of those that they were describing with the JBL kind of ticked off my boxes of like, yeah,
Uh-uh.
that's like an
Yeah.
absolute no-go. So, um, yeah, because Marantz and stuff I've dealt with, like handshake issues if I'm going from one HDMI source to another,
Mhm.
whatever. That's I can deal with that from time to time. It's no
Yeah.
big deal. But like if I'm needing to like restart my preamp processor quite a few times, no way. That's that's the end. You're
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah.
So once again, I mean, I was eyeing it before, and it's kind of back on my radar again, is the Marantz AV10 preamp processor. I mean, it is literally their flagship, and but it's not just because it's the most expensive and it's the flagship that I want it. No, it's because it can literally I can connect all 17 of my speakers currently, including the voice of God, including that center channel height, or center height channel. And because I can connect 17 at any given time, it'll automatically switch, because it can only process a total of 15 when you're actually watching content.
Right.
So when I'm watching Dolby Atmos or DTSX content, it will conform to 9.4.6 because I also have 4 subwoofers, and the AV10 supports 4 subwoofers. So technically, the AV10 is a 21 channel processor because
Mhm.
it can do 17 channels and 4 subwoofers. So yeah, when I'm watching Atmos or DTSX, it'll conform to 9.4.6, which I've never been able to do in my theater yet, which I would love to try just to see if it is overkill or not.
Yeah.
Because I want to see if having all those speakers engaged really does make it seamless when there's something transitioning from the front to the back or side to side or whatever. So hopefully I can, tell people about that in the near future if I get my hands on an AV10. But also, if I'm listening to a native RO3D mix, since I already have the voice of God and the 10 channel speaker connected, I don't have to disconnect or reconnect anything. It'll automatically conform to a 13.1 RO3D mix. So that's another reason that I want that AV10 so that I can just seamlessly switch between the two and not have to do anything. It'll just be automatic. So,
And we lost them. This happens always in the middle of a thought. It just
I'm sitting here engaged.
I
hanging on
know.
every word.
It's like when you're watching a movie and there's buffering, and you're like,
okay, here we go.
"There we go."
I'm
Okay,
back.
I was hanging on every
Can you
word.
hear me again?
I was hanging on every word.
yeah, Torch was so enthralled, and then he started crying. Literally,
The screen froze, and so did I. I'm like, where is it?
Okay, so what I hope to do is the other day, since I have the Marantz SR7015 still hooked up in my theater right now, the max I can do is 7.2.4. So as I was listening to that, I was watching Gravity, I think, and I think I was watching some other native Atmos mix. So since I only have 4 heights, front and rear, there were times where I could very clearly hear a phantom center height image of stuff going on directly above me. So that was cool. Very cool. But that's when we're talking about Atmos. I guess one advantage, I mean, maybe even in the theater that Taurus was building out that you just showed pictures of, possibly the only advantage you could have of having 6 height channels with a ceiling that low is if you tend to use the aromatic up mixer quite a lot, or if you do happen to have quite a few native RO3D 4K Blu-rays. Because then it's going to take advantage of the voice of God, which I think it just automatically puts that in the middle heights if you don't actually have a specific voice of God speaker up there. I think it creates that center image with the middle heights.
That's cool.
So I guess that's really the only reason you might want to have 6 even with an 8-foot ceiling. But I totally get it. Like if you had 9 or 10-foot ceilings, my ceilings are 9 in my theater. So but also I just wanted to max it out as much as I could.
Yeah.
Just for testing purposes. So
Yeah.
that I could, do some tests and make some videos about it and inform the audience of my findings and what happened and if it's worth it or not, etc.
So there's like a use case there. Right. So there's a use case there though, outside of like a home theater. Like this is not just for enjoyment. Like this isn't, we don't like you're setting things up to test. as well. Like that's
Yes.
that was like the main goal of the room, because of just like, you didn't want to like crowd your house with all this gear, which I can totally relate to.
Right.
Like I said, I have had 10 subwoofers just unhooked in my theater room for a while. Like they're just sitting there. Like I don't really have any place to put them. So like getting that stuff out into another room, or another area, another whatever, like a testing chamber is so cool. And I was like, that's when we first met, actually, is when I like reached out to be like, hey, I want to do a live stream. I just did this in my new home. You did this. Like, let's talk, like, let's connect and like talk about this stuff. So
Yeah, that's right.
it brought us all together. I do want to highlight a couple comments here real quick. This is actually a great idea. Every time, Elon, that you freeze, I'm going to screenshot it, and then we'll make a compilation later.
Yeah.
I think that you can
we can post it on the community page and just be like, did you miss this?
Yeah, because you
Tune in
want to
next
tune in
week.
for this, and it's always Elon like half
Yeah.
blinking or like some weird face.
Exactly. Did you miss this dumb face?
Right. And then I think this is kind of more geared towards Taurus, but I think we can all answer this. Willie asked, do you upmix 5.1 and 7.1 soundtracks to use all of the speakers, or just use the full setup for Atmos tracks, assuming it's an Atmos track that actually uses all the speakers, or it could be DTSX as well? Taurus, I'm gonna like throw that to you first. Do you typically upmix everything, or are you kind of like, you just let the whatever's coming in is what's going out, like kind of thing?
Whatever's
Like,
coming in is going out, typically.
okay.
If it's a Dolby Atmos track, I just let it play. There's really no need for me to do much more than that.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've been doing more that I've never really done much of in the past, and that's when I typically will do some kind of maybe upmix, and that's listening to music. Never really been much of a music guy, but because I've got all of these speakers and everything just sounded so fantastic with the subs and all of that, now I actually started to listen to more music, and it's been a fantastic thing. Elon, you talked a lot about Dolby Atmos music. Do you listen to, is that the kind of thing that you normally listen to, or are you pretty much doing the gamut?
Yeah, I mean, I don't normally listen to Dolby Atmos music just casually. Most of the time, if I do listen to it, it's actively and trying to, if it's for a video, or if I'm, if there's some sort of science behind it, or reasoning or testing involved.
Gotcha.
Because, well, for one thing, now that it's summertime, I only have a very limited time to be in that theater before it gets really hot. So, yeah, but yeah, I also just got into DVD audio and SACDs. So I was an instant fan when I heard that just a couple weeks ago, because that just takes the cake. That beats any Atmos streaming that I've ever heard, because there's just so much more fidelity, and you really just get everything. There was nothing compressed or missing. It is just all there, and it makes sense that, people used to invest highly in systems to allow DVD audio and SACDs to play. But I mean, unfortunately, DVD audio and SACD didn't get very good marketing, so that's why they just don't really print those anymore. But yeah, whenever I do listen to Dolby Atmos music, it's definitely gotten a lot better, but it's still kind of hit or miss. You'll
I'll
get a
tell you,
really
man,
good track.
I will tell you,
Yeah.
when you have your theater, and I'm pretty sure you have an awesome setup, Elon, but just speaking for me specifically, when you have a theater that is properly designed and your speakers are properly placed, and you have as many as I do in there, that Dolby Atmos music is just rocking, man. It is one of the most awesome things I think I've ever experienced. If you ever wondered where placement is in these songs, with a properly designed theater and with properly set up speakers, you're able to pinpoint where it all is. It's just the most fantastic thing I've pretty much ever experienced. That's the one thing that I say I've been most impressed with my theater, is listening to music, because I never really been much of a music guy prior to that. But that's what's impressed me most.
Taurus, do you remember when you first made these upgrades? What there was a singular word that you used to describe the sound in your theater, and you said it. You probably said it to me 10 times in our first conversation about it.
Ooh, refresh my memory, Brad. I'm old. I don't remember those things.
Orchestral. You said it sounded orchestral.
There you go. Okay.
That was, and it made me laugh, because I was like, so are you listening to like orchestra music? You're like, no. And I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it felt so full. I mean, the sound was just so full coming from everywhere. You know, that AVM 70 was just such a fantastic processor. While the one that I sent you, the Denon 6300, is a fantastic ADR. Don't get me wrong. Once I got that AVM 70 and I was able to get those Proteus, those DSPs with it, it really took my sound up to a whole other level. And like I said, I was just super impressed. And one of the main things, Elin, that I was impressed with was listening to Dolby Atmos music. I do have front wides. I will tell you this. I think my front wides are more impressive with music than actually watching movies, because there really hasn't been very many movies that have used those wide channels. So I'll stand up and when I'm watching something, I'll put my ear up to the.
Is there something coming out? Yeah.
And I'm not really hearing anything, you know. But you got music going, and man, I mean, they're just cranking. It's a really awesome thing.
Yeah, I will say, and this is not a plug at all, but on the 6300H is awesome. But I even think I messaged you, Taurus. Odyssey provided me with a multi-QX license, and that was kind of probably a game changer in terms of like not having to, because before then I just do manual EQ with the graphic equalizer on it. And this just kind of opened up everything. It's literally like having a DSP now in like Odyssey. Like you can do everything yourself if you want to through Remy Q Wizard and import those into like, so there's like, it's kind of like the sky's the limit. I mean, there is obviously a limit to like the amount of correction you want to do, but I was amazed at like the flexibility that it provides you with essentially what costs $200, right? Like, you know, those Proteas were not $200. You know, they were quite a bit more than that. I'll just say that. But like it unlocked so much more functionality at the level the level that receiver is at technically, right? Like that it makes sense if you're kind of looking for that next step up. It's like, I want I want all this DSP functionality, but I don't want to spend all this like extra, or maybe I don't have this extra money. $200 is still a lot, but it was so game changing to me that I'm like, I can't imagine not using it. Basically, it's kind of like those Proteas. Like you can't imagine going back, right? Like,
no, I'm going to tell you, if I ever do another theater, I will have some new Proteas in there. I will either take these with me or add some new ones. My Lumagen goes with me everywhere I go. The Lumagen is still the creme de la creme of my theater. I absolutely love that thing. But those Proteas are becoming a quick second, I got to tell you.
Yeah. I was going to ask, Kevin asked, have any of you heard Yellow's Point? Is it Point Yellow? I can't remember. I don't know. He's like Yellow's Point Atmos album, or I have heard Hans Zimmer live from Prague. There's some great tracks on there. Unfortunately, it's been like played at every damn like Cedia and Audio Advice. Like they all play these same tracks, and you get so fatigued listening to the same stuff over and over. At least I do. Like as much as I love that Ready Player One opening race scene, I've watched it probably 300 times.
Yeah.
And it's like, God. So, I think it's really great. I think John Williams, live in Vienna or something like that, is another excellent one that doesn't really get much love. It lacks what Hans Zimmer's has in like the electronic, like deep kind of sub bass stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
But what you get is like, it's like you're sitting in the audience at a live orchestra. And it's like, it captures that feeling. So if you're into John Williams, like, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, if you're a fan of film scores, why wouldn't you be? Definitely give that disc a listen. The only thing I think it's shot interlaced. Like it's weird. Like it's got some funky, I don't know.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I'm not doing that shit. No, I would recommend it though if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually made a video on that Point album by Yellow. So Kevin, if you're wondering, you can search my channel, and yeah, it's a good one. It's very dynamic, very just all over the place, and just high fidelity. It's awesome. I'd highly recommend it.
And one thing I do want to add about listening to music and the setup that I currently have is that Anthem AVM70, the audio modes that they actually have, the proprietary audio modes they have. There's a Anthem Cinema, I believe it's called. It's been a little while since I looked at it. And I think there's an Anthem Music. So whenever I'm listening to music through the Anthem, I'm actually using that Anthem Cinema mode. And man, it is just awesome. The dispersion and the placement that you get with that particular audio mode is actually better than listening to it natively. So typically what I'll do is I'll upmix, or I will use that particular mode when I'm listening to music.
Yeah. I tend to upmix most things. I think Elon, this question came up for us like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it did.
But yeah, I tend to upmix most things. Like I said, my wife and I are watching Stargate SG-1 and Atlantis, and I'm upmixing those with DTS Neural X, and it's pretty convincing sometimes with the placement of objects like throughout the room and above. Sometimes they'll activate the Stargate and it'll be like in the back, like left corner of the room, off camera, and it just kind of adds this kind of sense to it. And my wife will even be like, "Whoa, that was cool." For someone who's watched the show multiple times like her, it's for her to be wowed by it. It's like pretty impressive. So sometimes I just stick with straight up stereo music. Like if it's just a straight up stereo track, if it just doesn't sound, it's not sounding right. If I can't get the sound modes to sound right or something, then yeah, I'll switch it over to stereo. I don't listen to a ton of music in the theater though. I'm normally
either Brad, you're missing out, man. That fantastic room you have. Come on.
Oh, I know. Well, I mean, it's either like the time I spend in there is like I want to be playing a game or watching a movie or a TV show. And when I find time to listen to music, it's normally I'm multitasking. I'm not critically listening.
I'm just gonna ask that. Like what room in your house do you actually listen to music if you don't listen in your fantastic 15.18 theater that you have there?
15.18. You're just throwing out numbers randomly. Like if I'm doing like kind of I don't know, like I'm trying to write a script or something, or if I'm doing any type of like, I don't know, we'll say clerical work, budget stuff or whatever. I'll be sitting in the theater and normally I have music on, but I don't know that I sit down and critically listen to music. It's kind of something I don't even think about, but come to think of it, most of the time I'm listening to music, I'm like listening to music with headphones. Like I'm working out, or I'm going for a jog or something.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm out of shape now, but I am getting back into shape. So that's just saying. Jeez.
It makes two of us. Not all of us can look as good as Elon. I'm working on it, Elon, though. I'm working on it.
Elon is a I don't know. I can't remember what I was going to say. I was going to probably something really inappropriate. This is, by the way, Taurus, this is an NSFW stream. But yeah, I did have, what was it? I had like Apple Music for 6 months from my cell phone provider at one point. And I I listened to a bunch of Dolby Atmos stuff, and I was like, if I really am into this, I'm going to keep the subscription, but I just wasn't like, I couldn't find anything that really, it didn't really add anything. The music I was listening to a lot of like remixes. And I think for some of the stuff like Rush, like I'm a big Rush fan, listening to this is kind of like, that doesn't really sound right. You know, like it sounds like they go a little too far with some of the Dolby Atmos music mixes. Kind of like Elon and I talk about how they went too far with the the Twister Dolby Atmos track on the Turbine edition. I'm really wondering what that's going to sound like when it will officially release it. Is it going to come out this month on 4K Blu-ray?
Yeah, I just got my Groove notification yesterday that it's been shipped. So
I gotta get on that. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite movies.
because I pre-ordered. So
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, you have to let me know when you get it, and
I'll let the world know.
let everybody know. But yeah, let's see. Kevin did say, Elon, sorry, I forgot about your video about the Yellow Album. I think he sent you an email recommending it to you. Sorry, I'm getting old. Ha ha. Ha. Ha ha ha. That's how whenever
Actually,
someone
yeah, I
sends
think
me
he's
ha
right.
ha
Yeah.
ha, that's how I read it. Ha ha ha. Like there's a pause.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I think that like also a point that I kind of wanted to talk about is I do think, like, you know, we all talk about like Dolby Atmos and like these, you know, kind of immersive formats, but I think that there is something to be said about a more, dare I say, modest system, right? Even a good 5.1 system, 5.1, if you're just getting started, can sound phenomenal given the space. I know that Taurus, you and I have talked recently. A mutual friend of ours um, is getting into the home theater game. Finally, you've convinced him. He's got a modest
Only took
budget.
5 years.
It took him 5 years. You've convinced him finally to upgrade from his. He's got a 2.2, basically
Yeah,
Sonos.
something like that. I think he does have a 5.1 down in his family room,
Oh, okay.
but it's one of those Sony systems, so it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But compared to what he's working towards, it's going to be
Yeah.
it's going to be so much better than what he currently has. Yeah.
So he's been using a Sonos system, right? Just 2 speakers and 2 subs. Right?
I think he oh, you know what? I think you might be talking about what he had prior to what he has now.
Oh, okay. So
He actually
yeah,
has
maybe
a
I haven't talked to him in a
system
while.
that he got probably about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago.
Hmm.
So yeah, he has a fairly new system downstairs in his family room.
Gotcha.
But and he has 2 subs down there, believe it or not, as well. I actually convinced him to get a second sub down there. But over the years and for those that are listening, he is one of the guys that's on our podcast. It's Anthony, if you listen to the show. And after doing the home theater segments on the podcast for over 5 years, the guy finally decided to listen to me and upgrade one of his own spaces in his home. And let me tell you, I was so happy. I was so proud when he said he wanted to do it. But I told him that I'd help him out, because one thing that we've learned over the years, and I'm sure Elon and maybe Brad has even experienced this, is when you work with an AV integrator, a lot of the times they'll do what's convenient for them as opposed to what's convenient for you and what you really want.
Yeah.
So he dealt with some integrators doing some other things in his home, setting up his TVs and making some recommendations and all of that. And they were just not very smart things to do, particularly if you're trying to set up a properly designed and well-placed home theater. So I told Anthony what I would do is I'll source your equipment. I'll actually help you even design and make sure that your speaker placement is proper. And we'll make sure that we get you a proper projector and a screen to complement it. So we did all of that. We got him. He has a nice but modest budget.
Yeah.
He is not a home theater enthusiast, but he is actually looking to dip his toes into the hobby. So the equipment that I sourced for him, I had to make sure that it was well within his budget, but it was a pretty nice budget. Out of respect for him, I'm not going to give the price of it. But those that are enthusiasts, I'm sorry, Elon, sorry, buddy.
We can discuss it after.
But for those that actually are enthusiasts, once I tell you the equipment that he's getting, you can pretty much piece together what you think his budget is. So we decided to go with clips, right? So performance for the money that you're actually getting, I thought that for what he was looking to spend, clips would pair well with what he was looking to do. So we're doing a 7.2.2 system in his home. For the fronts, for the left and right, we're doing the all reference, by the way, all reference clips series. We're doing the R800Fs for the left and rights. He is doing the R30C center. That's one of the smaller centers, but it matches sonically with the rest of the speakers throughout the room. For the side surrounds and the rears, we're doing the R50Ms. For the Atmos heights, we're doing the R40SAs. Now, we're not doing the Atmos heights with the R40SAs sitting on top of the towers. We're actually going to place them properly on the ceiling so he's getting good imaging with that setup. So that's what we're doing there. For the subwoofers, he did get 2, and we went with the SPL 120s, the 12-inch subwoofers that they make. The projector that we're actually getting for him, we're doing the AWOL Vision LTV 2500. That's a 2600 lumen projector, UST ultra short throw. And we're pairing it with a matte white screen, a 120-inch matte white screen. Now, it would have been best, as we know, to pair that with an ALR screen. But based on his budget, we had to make a couple of compromises. And that was one of the compromises that we made. Instead of getting a ALR screen, an ambient light projecting screen, we actually had to go with a matte white screen. And it's one of these screens that AWOL puts in combination with their projectors. So it is complementary to the projector that we're actually purchasing. And he went all in, man. He painted his front wall black, actually gave him the color to use based on some matte black doors and that kind of thing that I have in my own theater. So he did that. He went and got some blackout curtains to black out the window in the room. There's only one window. The room, I think, it's almost 14 feet wide by, I think it's 12 feet deep. It's either 11 or 12 feet deep. I can't recall exactly what that is, but I know that it's pretty close to about 14 feet wide. And he is doing acoustical treatments. We decided to go with GIK acoustic absorption panels. We're doing 4 on the left and right wall so that we can capture those first reflection points. And I'm going to give him 2 acoustic panels that I have here that I'm not currently using. I actually purchased and had some additional panels made when I was doing my build, and they've just been pretty much sitting in my closet waiting for a home. So I'm going to do the friend thing and make sure that he has an extra set of acoustic panels, and we're going to place those on the back wall in between the rear speakers. And we're doing degrees. All of the speaker placement is going to be by degrees. We're doing 80 degrees, which is what Stephen Smith recommends. Got to give Stephen some credit and some love here. We're doing 30 degrees in the back wall, right? 15 degrees on each side of 180 degrees. So the separation is about 30 degrees. And that's actually what Anthony Gramani recommends for replacement.
You've been trying to get me to do that in my system, and I still haven't. I haven't found the time yet.
It makes a difference, man. Actually, the imaging, like in my theater, is just fantastic. Instead of having them so far away from one another, you have better placement when they're only 30 degrees from one another, 15 degrees on each side of the main listening position. The imaging on that is just freaking awesome.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. And in the ceiling, we're going to go 55 degrees in front of the main listening position and also to the sides as well. And the towers are going to be, say about 45 degrees on the side of the screen there, towed in towards the listening position at 45 degrees. So we pretty much got everything worked out and ready to go for him. And the folks that are actually doing the install are some of my favorite guys here in Texas Media Experts. They did a fantastic job with my upgrade. They had to tear down walls in order to get the speakers exactly where I wanted them placed and to get the right degrees and all of that. The install came out to be pretty pricey, but I was very happy with it once it was done. And I'm one of those guys that's pretty particular. So I'm sure I was annoying the. Can I curse here?
Yeah. This is
I was annoying the heck out of them, bro.
hell. Oh, come on, man! If you're gonna go for it, just.
Now I was annoying the hell out of them, man, making sure that they were doing things that I needed them to do, because I've had some unsavory and poor experiences with integrators in the past, and I do not let them just do what they want to do.
Yeah.
In my space. So I was following just about everything they were doing. But once I realized that I could actually trust what they were doing, I allowed them to work a little bit more without my guidance. But they were really cool about that. So I really do appreciate that about them, and we'll continue to recommend them for folks here in the South Central Texas area, San Antonio, Austin. They might even go as far as Houston. I'm not even really sure. But New Braunfels, and a couple of other places here in the region where we're located. But I'm excited for Anthony. And like I said, for those of you that are home theater enthusiasts, he has a nice, modest budget. I can't get the price, but you have an idea of what he's working with. So we're all pretty excited for him. His devices, he's got the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, Apple TV, the projector, the AWOL Vision LTV 2500 came with a Fire Stick. So he's going to have that as well. So he's got some pretty cool devices in there also.
Now all he's missing is, a PC. We need to get him into PC gaming, because that's really where.
Do you really think technical acuity challenged, right? That's been my word. Brad knows that's my word. Technical acuity. This guy who's as challenged as he is would actually use a PC. I don't even think so. Every time we do the podcast, the only holdup that we have is always him. So I can't get the sound to come out of my mic. Anthony, really, you should have had this worked out before we started. Man, what's going on?
I'm going to send this to him with the timestamps where you start talking shit about him. So you're like, this is live. We can't edit this out, Tors.
That's my guy. That's my guy, though.
No. He's a good dude. He's a good dude for sure. And I'm interested because I know he lives close to you as well. So maybe, right, maybe when I make my way out there one day, we can have a meetup at.
There's no maybe about it. It's something we absolutely will do. Listen, I got this whole podcast studio table here for us all.
Go over to his house and see his setup.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That would be super cool as well.
For sure. We definitely do a kind of like a little, what do you call them? Tour of everybody's.
Yeah, a little tour, like a little, I don't know, Youth Man home theater tour or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So I'm glad that he's getting into that. I mean, I'd love for him to be like, I want to build a piece. You could send him over to me for that. I give him all the.
I absolutely would. And there's one thing I want to say about Brad before we continue on in PC gaming. So when Brad and I first started hanging out, I game in my theater. I absolutely love home theater gaming. Big sound, big screen. I'm a big proponent of it. Brad, whenever we would play games together, Brad, where are you playing? Oh, I'm sitting here in my office. I'm like, Brad, man, take that PC out of that office and put it in that fantastic theater that you have. You need big sound. You need big picture. Put it out there. And so he would put it out there from time to time, but then he'd take it back to his studio. So I'm not taking credit for Brad actually placing his gaming PC in his theater. But I got to say, we did have some times where he and I would go back and forth getting it in there so that we could game together and all of us have the same experience while we were playing.
Well, I mean, at the time, my gaming PC was pulling double duty as my editing PC.
That's right.
And so it just didn't make sense for me to keep moving it back and forth. And I would do it occasionally, but I would always be like, I mean, I can't edit on I can't as much as I would have liked to be able to edit. It just wasn't working out. I'm like, in my home theater editing a video. But I've since switched over to a separate editing machine. And so that's allowed me to, once I did that, it was like, okay, I can move this. And that's when I started thinking, okay, maybe I would really like to upgrade, but I don't know. And then I built a PC for my in-laws and it had better stuff in it than what I had. I'm like, it's time, and
that let me just say, let me give you a public acknowledgement. That PC that you put together in your theater is freaking fantastic, man.
Oh, thank you.
Great setting up in there.
I mean, it all came together with the Silverstone case, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
That like that kind of made it into, I don't want to say stealth build, but it just blends in with the aesthetic of the room. Where, and I do like, I think what it was, I was holding on to this old kind of, I love the way PCs look. I really do. Like in their case with the side, like the glass side panel, you could see like it just looks, I love that. Like it just, the PC nerd in me is like, yes, I want it. The more fans, the better. I want all the RGB. I love seeing like the radiator tubes from like the liquid cooler, like in there and everything. But it stuck out like a sore thumb, and the whole point of the room was to disappear, right? Like when you turn the lights off and you watch a movie, you want the room to just kind of go away, and you get sucked into whatever like whatever content you're consuming. And so doing that is really like kind of elevated the experience at the expense of some airflow. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely more constrictive in that sense, and things get a little more toasty. But nothing outside of what is kind of within the tolerance of the actual devices. Like nothing's overheating, nothing is like getting too hot. It just is, a couple degrees higher than what it was in the case. Mainly the graphics card, but yeah, it's such a like I'm playing Banishers Ghosts of New Eden at 4K 120 frames per second. I'm just like, I can't imagine playing this on a console. It's really, yeah, I'm spoiled.
First world problems, Brad.
It is, and
First world problems. I tell you, don't you feel bad for this guy?
I know, no, I do realize how fortunate I am, because as I'm playing, I'm like, this looks amazing. Not everyone's going to have this experience, and I'm very fortunate that I can, like, that I have this equipment that I have, and even though like some of my equipment is not high end, whatnot, it's still, I make the most out of it.
Yeah, really nice looking theater. Fantastic PC. When you were putting it together, showing me some of the things you were doing, I was really impressed. I was pretty happy with the way that you were putting it together, because I actually have a horizontal PC case as well. From the time that I actually had my theater, my gaming PC was an HT PC, right? I've always had that horizontal orientation there. And unlike you, I really don't care how the PC looks. For me, it's all about performance. I do want it to look aesthetically. I want it to look aesthetic to the rest of the equipment that I have in my rack. But when it comes to all the lights and all of that, for me, that's always been a distraction, because I've always gamed in my theater.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there are different use cases, and there's different preferences for sure. I think if I wanted to build another like editing computer, I would definitely make it, more flashy, because if I'm going to have to look at it all day sitting on my desk, I never put it under the desk. Don't do that. Dust is crazy on the floor. Never put your PC on the floor, guys.
That's what air purifiers are for. Right?
No, that's not going to help. Trust me. You're going to early death of your computer. But anyway, I want to highlight a few comments here. And someone just got a text.
Oh, my phone's off.
It's probably me. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It was Elon. No.
I'm on mute.
No, that was me. I'm sorry, guys.
How dare you? You ruined the entire.
I my phone off, but I forgot that I could still get notifications through the PC. I'm sorry.
I just start flipping up the table and like throwing stuff.
Where's it coming from? What is happening?
I'm sitting here quiet, like, man.
Yeah, like that wasn't me. Wasn't me. Oh, I love this. Willie says, I'm so old. I have been dabbling in this since the late 80s, and I'm convinced that the biggest and most significant audio leap there's ever been was from Dolby Pro Logic Surround to Discrete 5.1. And then he kind of course corrects himself and says, actually, maybe the leap from mono to stereo was the most significant one. Yeah. I don't know. I think, the jump from like even stereo to surround, like Pro Logic, or even like 4-channel, like that was like huge. I think there's always like this step up, right? With each like iteration. Yeah, some of them have bigger leaps, in my opinion, than others, but there's something about going from like, a stereo signal to like having 5 channels, right? That's just
Yeah.
crazy. Like, but you know, now we're at this point where it's like, how many speakers do you want to have in your system? And the answer is yes. You know, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's like
Correct.
128. Sure, why not? Yeah, I remember playing my first Dolby Pro Logic game on the GameCube back in the day called Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, and that was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, and then the Xbox came out and was like discrete 5.1 Dolby Digital, but it was still like, what? Like, there's an actual subwoofer channel, like a 0.1 track. This is amazing. And now we just take everything for granted. You know, if something sounds like crap, we're like, oh, stupid game doesn't sound good sound or whatever. It's like we've come so far, you know. But yeah, what are some of like the earliest memories that you guys have? I know, Elon, you actually did a community poster or something recently about the DTS intro before
Yeah.
you watched Jurassic Park.
Yeah, dude. Because I just thought to myself, you know what? In this day and age, it's got to be on YouTube somewhere, you know. And sure enough, it literally didn't take me long. All I had to do was type in one thing, and it was there. But yeah, I don't know. I was just feeling nostalgic for some reason, and just remembered that that was like such a pivotal moment in my childhood because I had already known that I had been just very into audio, but I don't know, it just didn't really hit me that much. It was just natural. It's like everybody's into audio, right? But
Yeah.
then when I saw that intro before Jurassic Park at almost 11 years old, it just kind of solidified that I really do have a love audio that is not normal. because because I even mentioned it to my sisters, like, "Oh, man, that intro was cool," and I even mentioned it to my friends afterwards, when I, called them on the phone or something afterwards, and, they just didn't really seem all that interested in the fact that some DTS audio intro was cool to me. I was just like, "Guys, come on, man." Like, it just this thing came, and then the words, and then the CD, and then it exploded at the end. Yeah, whatever. So, at that moment, I was like, "Huh, I'm just a special kind of weird, but I like it 'cause I really love good audio." And, yeah, Jurassic Park was literally the first DTS presentation in a theater.
Yeah.
So, from then on, I was hooked. I was like, "Alright. I love good sound, and that's why I go to the theater." So, those were the days
Those were the days.
because it's not exactly like that anymore. That's not why people flock to the theater anymore because you can pretty much get it at home.
Yeah. I also think that there is a discussion that my friend and I have actually about this is there's almost like a desensitized aspect to home theater these days because 10, 15 years ago, I would have people come over and they look at my holy shit, that's badass. You know, you do a demo or whatever, and now they're just like, oh yeah, that's cool. I got a soundbar at home. Like that's literally like a lot of the mentality that I've had people come over, family members, whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's not like, whoa, this is crazy. It's more like, oh, I can watch this on my phone. Why would I go in here and set it's like get out of my house, it's like yeah, but I digress. Taurus, do you remember like when you got started, did you have a moment where you're like, I want a kick-ass home theater. I want something where like I don't that rivals the local megaplex.
Well, I've always been a big film fan growing up. Not necessarily the biggest home theater enthusiast growing up. I was always a big film fan because growing up, I was pretty much into theater, and my undergraduate degree is actually in the arts. Elon, you got that San Francisco hat on. I'm from San Francisco as well. I graduated
hey.
from San Francisco State. Yeah.
I grew up in Modesto.
Oh, did you? Okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
still have family out there, actually. I still travel out there every blue moon. But
Hey.
for me, I've always known that once the technology got to the point to where home theaters could rival a commercial theater, I was going to do something, and I was going to try to do something in a big way. And it really started to kick off for me probably about 2012, 2013. My wife and I, we had really just got married the year before, and she wouldn't let me convert the family loft into a theater. She wouldn't let me do it. I moved into her house from Utah, and I had all of these grand plans of turning that loft into a really nice, fantastic theater, but she just wasn't having it. She's the boss. So I had to listen. But what she agreed to do, what she allowed me to do, she did state in the next house, if you want a dedicated room, we can actually do something for you where we can, get you something really nice and you can do whatever you want to do with it. And sure enough, that is the house that we're currently in right now. And I've never been one to do things small. Either I'm going to do it big or I'm not going to do it at all.
Go big or go home, right?
That's right, baby. That's right. And sure enough, I did. And I'm still doing it now. I'm still hearing about it now. But yeah, so for me, it's always been, I've known that I'm going to eventually have a theater of my own in my own home once the technology caught up with what was going on in the commercial theater. And right around, I spent about a year out in Kuwait. I had to work out in Kuwait for like a year. And while I was in Kuwait, I was actually planning the theater that we have here. And I met a lot of fantastic enthusiasts while I was out there, not Kuwaitis, but just folks on AVS Forum and just networking with anybody that I could actually speak to who had a theater and getting some recommendations from them of things they wanted to do, trying to plan who's going to be my integrator and doing all of that from thousands and thousands of miles away from where the actual house was. It was fun, but it was challenging trying to get it all done. But eventually, once we got it all said and done, I was very proud of the theater when it was finished. And of course, I'm loving it and was thoroughly enjoying it the time that I actually had it completed and was getting to experience what I was experiencing. But once I realized that I made some mistakes, I realized that, man, I'm not done. There's a whole lot more money I got to spend in order to get this right. And that was that project that I just actually finished up last year.
Yeah.
But I've never really been, prior to the 2010s, big into home theater. I've always been a film fan, like I said, but around the 2010s is where I really started to take the hobby seriously and tried to figure out what it was I wanted to do in my own space.
Awesome. I actually never knew that about you. So I was actually curious.
Yeah.
I knew that you dabbled in acting for a while and stuff, like but the long nights were what you dissuaded you from. You're like, I can't do this. I can't.
Yeah.
It was like 2 a.m. or something. You're like,
once I was done with college, I did my first independent film, and they were shooting at all times of the night. I'm a regimented person, which is why I joined the military shortly after that. I like getting up early and I like going to bed early. And we were shooting at like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. Like, man, I can't hang with this.
those are my fun hours, buddy.
That was it.
That's where I do my. Elon knows. That's where I do. That's when I do my best work. I don't know about him.
Yeah, sometimes you text me, I'm like, "You're still awake?"
Yeah. Although lately it's been 8 p.m., 9 p.m. just falling asleep watching Stargate. So yeah, I mean, my moment that I had was kind of synonymous with Elon's. It wasn't necessarily the DTS thing. It was seeing Jurassic Park in the theater back in '93 and just being amazed at like the sound. And I think I saw the movie in stereo. I don't even think I saw it in DTS, but I was just like, the visuals mixed with the sound. It did two things. It made me want to get into home theater, and it kind of cemented my love for or my passion for wanting to get into movie making. Like I wanted to make movies. I wanted to get into that side in any way that I could. And I'm still trying to get into that, thing, trying to figure out, what I want to do. However, that really was like, oh my God, like I want, like, what do I need to do? This is 93. So like I'm 10. I was born in 83. I don't have money. I'm not like, I had some speakers that I like were given to me from my uncle, and he gave me his radio, like his kind of like head unit. I think it was a Kenwood, was like turntable, cassette player, had like a graphic EQ on it, it had the dual cassettes, the dual cassette player on the bottom that you could, so it was like this big unit. And I didn't have even a stereo VCR, just had a mono VCR that I hooked up, but I used like a Y splitter. So it was like just, I went into this whole thing and I watched Star Wars and I'm like, this is amazing, and it wasn't. But it, as a kid, it's like a 10, 11-year-old, I was like, this is amazing. And then obviously, I knew in high school that I was not normal, as Elon pointed out about himself. I was all into like getting I remember for my 15th birthday, I wanted to get a Dolby Digital 5.1 surround sound setup. Like I'd saved up, and my parents were going to give me some money. I was going to put that money and get it. And I was telling my friends about it, and they were just like, you're stupid. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we don't understand anything. And I was like, you're not my friends anymore, And there was like, they made fun of me or whatever. It was like, I don't care. Like, I'm into this. And they didn't really get it until those same friends came over, and I put on this was probably like 99, 2000. I put on the opening to Saving Private Ryan, and they were just like, I remember it was just like this thing where they were just like, holy, like, I just feel like I got shot in the chest. And I was like, that's home theater, and yeah, that's kind of like, it just all started back in like 93, Jurassic Park, so Elon, I actually think I was going to tell you, I think I have somewhere on a hard drive a bunch of like demo files, and I have that specific one in DTS 5.1.
No way.
So if you want them, I could probably find a way to get them to you. I used to get really into burning DVD demo discs. So it'd be like scenes. Like now we have like Plex and Kaleidoscapes and Shield, all this stuff. Or like before, I would literally burn a disc. So I have like 10 discs that say Dolby Digital and DTS demo disc, like written on it. And just all these scenes that I like ripped from a DVD back in the day.
That's actually a question. Should I throw that up?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. What is the best way to create a playback list of demo content if on a budget? I currently play content mostly from 4K discs.
So on a budget, so if you're on a budget, and I hate recommending this because I don't like the Shield at all as a player. But it's literally what is probably the cheapest is an NVIDIA Shield mixed with a like some type of, I would recommend an SSD, especially if you're going to like back up full movie. Just the read write speeds of an SSD are so much better. But you can get away with probably a hard drive for these small demo files, like a spinning drive. Get something, maybe a terabyte. Just depends on how much you want to load up. And then you need to look at like getting a disk or like an external drive for your computer. And there are special ones that you have to get that can be flashed with a specific type of firmware in order to rip those discs. But then it's like that's honestly so difficult, or like that's the most difficult part is amassing all this equipment and making sure you have everything. And then once you actually get into the process using free software, like Make MKV, actually, I think that's like freeware, and MKV Toolnix, you can actually just pick out scenes if you know like the time that you need. Like, okay, I want to go from like 10 minutes and 41 seconds to 12 minutes and 30 seconds. You can do that. And that's how I create mine. Like I'll rip the movie and then I'll specify which scenes I want and just grab those, like take them out of there, like all bit for bit identical, and then put them on there. So like I'm not having to grab a disc every time I want to demo a scene. Like that's the one thing that I like don't really miss about like the way I used to do things is like I don't want to have to grab a disc every time someone comes over. I just want to go to the files. Like I know, Taurus, you have a Kaleidoscape in your system, so you've set up scripts of like demo scenes. So when people come over, right, like you could play through those scenes, like you know, like I want this and this and this and this, and you can set them in whatever order you want. And that's really cool that you can do that in Plex as well. You can create like a playlist and then just okay. Like for me, I literally have like 10 demo clips, but like in between, like I'll throw in like a little, one of those little Dolby Atmos unfolded demo things or whatever. Like so, like you can customize it. But that would probably be the cheapest way. But you will have to like if you want these scenes from actual movies, you will have to own the disc. I mean, there are other ways of getting stuff, but we won't get into that. That's a total legal nightmare there, even if you own the disc. So,
Yeah, true. But
yeah.
Kevin also mentions there's a lot of demo trailers at demolandia.com.
Oh, I do know that Trinov has some free demo content on their website as well.
They do.
However,
you have to register for it, but it's free. It's free register.
I've listened to it. I've not been all that impressed with what I've heard. So I wouldn't classify it as there's a lot of the Dolby Atmos trailers are much better to me in terms of like what you get. Like I just didn't find the Trinov stuff to be very engaging.
I know I've registered, but I haven't actually downloaded any of them yet.
Well, don't do it. No. All right, we have one question I saw here, and then we're going to kind of wrap things up here. So I think Mosen, I'm going to say Mosen. He says, I like my PB3000 in front of the room, but I heard if you put subs in two opposite corners, it's more balanced. What do you think? He says, I have dual PB3000s. I have purchased a new processor and get all the speakers volume manually. Surprisingly, most of my speakers are set to minus, but in my previous AVR, they're all 0 or positive 1 or 2. Your opinion? So there's two questions, I guess. So going back to the first one, it really just depends. That's like a hard question to answer directly without looking at measurements of your subs in your room, because every room is going to be different. You can move your sub an inch and it's going to change the response. So like what you're called, I think technically is called co-locating your subs. So if you have one in the front right corner and one in the rear left corner, kind of opposite, that's typically what some people will do. Some people like to put their subs right in the front two corners, or it just depends on your space as well. If you have 4 subs, you're kind of limited. I know, Torch, you have a total of 6 in your
6. Yeah, I'm going to be adding 2 more.
Yeah. Oh, so you're going 8.
I'm going 8. Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, when you told me you were upgrading, or I thought for some reason you told me you're getting 2 more. I thought you're replacing 2 in the ceiling, but now that makes more sense that you're adding 2. Okay. That makes way more sense. Okay. You're going to have like ultra low output. So, but no, like I think you really need to use some. It's hard to say. I used to be one of those people who like try and see. Honestly, you can make things better, or you can make things worse, or you could not make it just be like nearly identical. I would maybe look at what you're thinking you're lacking now with your current setup. Like, do you feel like you need more extension? Do you feel like you're missing out on certain frequencies? It's all this stuff is like really hard to know without actually like grabbing a measurement mic, like a U mic 1, and just running some sweeps to see where you're at. It's really hard to know, like, because our ears lie to us all the time. Like I always say, measure and then verify with your ears. Because even though something measures well, it might not sound great. And we saw, like, Taurus can attest to this, because we tried to do a mini DSP thing and the graphs looked great, if you remember, but you're like, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound right. So it's hard because we were doing it remotely too, and I couldn't hear it with my own ears, because I could be like, no, you were hearing the wrong sound before. No. So it's really hard to answer that question without a measurement. Right. Let's see here. And then on to his second part, it really is going to depend on receiver as well as amp power. if I'm not mistaken. So like when I went from the 2300W that I had to the 6300H, all of the trim levels, like the level adjustments, were a bit different because there's more power coming out of that receiver. Like it can handle more per channel. So I didn't have to drive the speakers as hard with the 6300, even though I had 2 more speakers than I did before. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. I really don't think that you're like, I mean, if you're in positive one or like, if you're in the negative, that's technically good. I've had speakers in the negative before, and that's no problem at all. So as long as it sounds good, you're not like noticing any distortion, I think you're good. And I think we have one other question here before we wrap things up. Anthony says it's going to cost $10K for me to add wides and replace my 4 tops with all the same speaker I currently have on the bed layer, plus a den on A1H to handle it. Worth it? I want to, but Elon, this is all you. I'm leaving. No, I'm just kidding. What do you guys think about that? Because I mean, that's a lot of money.
Well, front wides. So he's what it sounds like, Anthony, is you want a 9.x.4 system. Yeah, because if that's the case,
that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I think even the 6700 could handle, or 6800 could handle something like that too. As long as you have, I would assume that you have external amps or thinking about getting external amps to power that. Because I think the 6800 has 11 internal amps, but then can process a total of 13. So that's, 9 plus 4 is 13. So you've got that, because I don't think you need to have the A1H, which is, I believe, Denon's flagship AVR.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to go that expensive if you want a 9.x.4 configuration.
He posted saying that he knows the 85 HA will do it, but might as well go for the A1H.
Oh,
like if he's gonna do it, he's like, I'm going all out. Like screw it. Like I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like I would rather get the minimum amount, or the smallest AVR that can handle the channel count that I want, and invest in external amps, rather than spending more money to get the A1H, which is more powerful with its internal amps. So that's why you're going to be spending a lot more. Plus, it's got more features. You can do more zones.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have to have like up to 3 or 4 zones, sure, that's probably a reason you want to get the A1H. But then you're taking, if you have multiple zones, you're taking away from your channel count in your main zone. So yeah, I would honestly try and see if the 6800H does enough as far as just channel count and features, and invest in external amps to then power that big of a configuration.
Yeah.
Then you'll save some money that way.
Yeah, he said he wants the 4 independent sub outs and direct bass control on the A1H. Is the reason to do it.
Because the 6800 has 4 sub outs now, whereas the 67 only had 2. But yeah, the 68 can also handle Dirac.
Yeah, it just depends. Like to me, I don't know if the I've never used Dirac bass control, so I don't know. I am a manual guy. I'm a manual setup guy, as Taurus knows and Elon knows. So yeah. You have any thoughts or opinions on this, Taurus?
I don't review things like you guys do, so I don't want to steer him in the wrong direction. So I'll leave that to the experts.
Okay, so then we have. I feel like this is the final question. I promise. Kevin wants to. Can each of you recommend a movie for tonight, please and thank you? So I know that Taurus, you can recommend a movie.
I know what I'm going to be watching tonight, or maybe tomorrow, the day before the 4th of July.
Independence Day.
Furiosa.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's out on streaming. Yeah,
last week, and I bought it on Kaleidoscape. I just haven't had the opportunity to watch it just yet. So I thoroughly enjoyed Mad Max Fury Road in my space And I assume I'm going to have the same experience with Furiosa. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very nice. Elon, do you have a recommendation for a movie tonight?
The Matrix.
Are you going with an
If
older
we're
one?
not- yeah, if we're not going to go something brand new or semi-new, that one never gets old, especially if it's the remastered Atmos version, because that was a excellent remastered version.
All right. Well, if you're going to go Matrix, I'm going to go even older. And with Axel F coming out soon on Netflix, I'd say either watch Beverly Hills Cop 1 or 2.
That's a good recommendation, Brad.
2 is actually, we just watched Beverly Hills Cop last week, my wife and I. I've seen it a million times. She hasn't seen it since like early 2000s. So we're kind of going through. I don't know. I really enjoyed it, but the second is still probably my favorite of all of them.
Gotcha. You looking forward to seeing Axel F?
Yeah, I'm tempering my expectations. I want it to be good. But unfortunately, Eddie Murphy, in terms of like comedy action, hasn't made a really decent movie in a long ass time.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it'll be kind of return to form for him. But we'll see. All the movies that he's done, like Coming to America, like the second one, have just been. I love Coming to America, the first one. Absolutely, like probably one of my favorite 80s comedies. Trading Places as well, but it's like this. It just really Coming to America didn't do anything for me.
Gotcha. Can I make one more recommendation just in case he doesn't want to spend money on a movie and he just wants to watch something that's available on Netflix?
No, you can't.
Okay, sorry.
You're no. Go ahead.
I tried. No, but my 2018, we did the podcast, and my 2018 favorite movie of that year,
I know what you're gonna say.
was Upgrade.
Fantastic movie.
Upgrade is available on Netflix right now. And let me tell you, I love movies where I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But Upgrade is a good watch. It's a B movie. Don't expect the same production that you would typically see in Independence Day or Jurassic Park. But the story is just fantastic. The action is really, really good. And it's got a nice ending. I like that ending.
I wouldn't call it a B movie. I would call it an indie film. It's definitely an indie film, but it's not a B. A B movie is like a cheap, cheesy horror movie.
It depends on how you interpret it. Some people actually interpret that
a
type
little campy,
of movie.
maybe.
Yes,
Those people are wrong.
I like that interpretation, Brad. We can roll with that.
Yeah.
Either way, see it. It's really good.
Upgrade it is, he said. Thanks. So there you go. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, guys. Do you guys have any closing comments you want to leave with people?
Elon?
You go first, Doris.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for the invitation. I had a fantastic time hanging out with you guys. And I was doing my best to keep up with them, guys. Their technical acuity, Brad, is just so high.
Favorite word.
But, yeah, my favorite word. But it was a fantastic time hanging out with you and your audience. Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Well, thanks you. Thanks you. Words are no longer applicable here. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us. And Elon, do you have a thing to say? Anything?
Well, if you were here at the beginning of the stream when I was talking to my daughter on this walkie-talkie, it was because, of course, nothing is ever delivered when I want it to be delivered. So I knew it was going to be delivered as I was doing this live stream. And my daughter's alone, just half mile down the road. But yeah, that was in fact, and Taurus will appreciate this, the AWOL LTV 3500 and their motorized screen being delivered. So
awesome. Are you doing a review on that?
Yeah, first time I've ever done a review on a ultra short throw. So I'm super excited and be on the lookout for that. I think I'm going to do an unboxing first and then do an official review after that. So.
Yeah.
Nice. So looking forward to that now.
You got to get with the cool kids and call it a UST. It's a
An
UST
UST.
projector. Yeah, UST. Well, that's gonna do it for us, guys. Thank you so much. When does this? When do the episodes normally come out, Elon? On for listening, if you are a fan of the listening podcast.
Oh,
Form.
thank you for asking, Brad. They come out every Wednesday at 6 a.m. I don't know, whatever time that Podbean designates. I don't know. Tomorrow.
There you go. Well, I'm glad I asked, Elon. Thank you so much for answering that question.
You
All right,
are
guys.
welcome.
Well, we're all AI versions of ourselves now. Well, thank you again, guys, so much. We will catch you next week and have a great night.
Bye.